Okay, once again, welcome. And our next guest has appeared in more Star Trek episodes and movies than any other actor. Earlier in his career, he was a regular in the series Chips. More recently, a recurring role in the ABC series Castle. And you can hear his voice on hundreds of animated shorts. Please welcome to the stage Michael Dorn.
How's everybody today? Cool, very cool. I'm doing well. Who said that? Who said that? Oh, yes, I'm doing very well. Yeah, great theater, huh? Oh.
We're proud of it.
Yeah? Hi, guys. All right. Signed a big knife for those people. I know. Batleth, you know. Okay. Oh, that's better.
How are your batleth skills these days?
They're totally rusty. The worst part about the batleth is that if you're not careful, you can hurt yourself more than you can hurt anybody else. And you just really have to be careful. I mean, we created the batleth. A good friend of mine from the show, a special effects supervisor named Dan Curry, who was a martial arts expert. And we said, you know, we got to give him something that's different than what we've seen. And so we sat down, and him being a martial arts expert, we really went through a lot of different permutations of what the batleth would be and how it would work and how effective it would be at slicing up people. And we came out with that design, which was pretty amazing. And then he gave it to me, and we worked on it for a few days about the kind of moves that you would use and how to use it correctly. And it was always kind of a battle with the stunt people, because they have their thing about how they want to do it, you know, and I had mine, and we would always kind of get in these discussions about, but it wasn't bad, but they would say, okay, this is what's going to happen. I said, okay, this is what I'd like to do. And I'd show them, and they'd incorporate some of it. And some of it was, it was okay. But for the most part, it was a pretty wild thing. And then the next year, I think the next 2 years went by, and then we said, we got to get him some other type of weapon. And I think it was when I went to deep space, we said, let's design another weapon. And we designed the mechleth, which is the kind of forearm weapon that you see. And we designed it, and it worked just like we designed it to work, and maybe too well, because there was a scene where I was using it to fight this guy, this alien, in one of my holodeck programs. And it was the stunt coordinator, the head guy, and he was in full alien makeup, you know, with a full mask, and you could just, you know, he had these eyes, but they were so he could see out of, and we were fighting, and he, in the mechleth, you see there's a blade that comes out like this, and then there's like a little hook. And the way we designed it was when they put a little bar or something like that, you basically block it. And if the guy goes this way, it hooks on that hook, and it flips the other part out. And he did that. And I blocked it, he hit it, flipped it out, and the blade came and just sliced open his mask. I mean, this full prosthetic mask, sliced open, and he was blinded for 20 minutes. And we were like, oh boy. And the thing is, it wasn't metal, because they wouldn't, you know, I mean, we just couldn't do metal on the show. I mean, it's just too dangerous. It was made out of this kind of hard plastic. So it wasn't even like metal. I mean, and I just was going, oh my God, you're lucky it wasn't like real or something like that. But it was one of those things where you kind of went, oh, I think we designed this better than anybody. But we were afraid and proud at the same time, you know. But you know, just I'll put a button on this whole thing. This about the martial arts. I think it wasn't Deep Space. I was still on Next Generation. I I think Dan and I, maybe another person, were talking about, they're selling everything about Star Trek. They're selling the books and this and this and all that stuff. Why don't we sell a Klingon martial arts video where Worf teaches martial arts, Klingon martial arts? And it could be a nice little thing. I mean, it actually was going to be sort of a conglomeration of Dan Curry's skill and my little stuff that I bring to it about the Klingons, and put it into this, a real sort of martial arts, what do you call it, discipline. And so everybody was like, wow, what a great idea. And Paramount, the licensing people were like, wow, great, we can make a lot of money and everything. And then Paramount Legal got into it. And they said, are you guys insane? You're going to put out a video where you're teaching people how to kill and maim, And the first thing they would do is that, they'd get a lawsuit for all these people that are out there like slicing people up and doing karate chops and, and they said, no, you can't do it. And I went, well, you know what? I said, that's not a bad idea not to do it, So I understood, but it was actually a very cool system that we created. And it's Dan Curry, who was special effects operator on all the shows, I think. He was involved. Really great guy. So, but anyway, it was. But the other thing I want to say is it was really amazing. And I talked to a lady today. We're talking about the show and how long it's been, and it's really, you wouldn't dream that it would turn out, like this, where we kind of took over from the original guys. They were still doing the movies, so we were just kind of like the new guys on the block, and they didn't give us much of a chance to make it. And after all this time, it'll be 30 years next year, to have the show still as popular. I mean, the BBC is running it like crazy, and we did our little 25th anniversary shows a couple of years ago, and the crowds were intense. I mean, it was so many people come out to see us after this many years, and it's just crazy that it's still going on like this. So I wanted to thank you guys and for your support and for your loyalty. We Klingons appreciate that. So thank you.
Speaking of the 30th anniversary, are there any shindigs planned for next year? Do you know of?
What is it?
For the 30th anniversary, any events planned for next year? Or
yeah. No, they have a whole. They're already starting to gear up for next year. We don't know what it's going to be, but they're starting already to gear up for conventions. I'm sure there's going to be a couple in Canada, because Canada is a big market for us. I mean, we had the first one we did for the 25th anniversary in Calgary, and it was in the Calgary Stampede Arena, and it was full. I mean, you're talking about probably 30,000 people, 30,000 people in this huge thing. It was crazy. So yeah, they're gearing up for it already.
One other thing I wanted to ask you, being here in Pensacola, of course, we're the home of the Blue Angels. You go out there and try to, hitch a ride on one of those jets. I know you're into that.
No, they've given me a bunch of rides. The Navy has been very, very nice with me and given me a bunch of rides in F-18s for 4 years. I keep telling people I was the Navy mascot for 4 years, and I got to ride it with the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds, and did a bunch of stuff, the Canadian F-18s in the back seat. So for a civilian, I've got a lot of time, actual stick time in these airplanes. And but the Blue Angels, there's two great stories. I mean, I went with the Blue Angels, and I have a picture that I haven't put up yet, but it's a picture of my little twin-engine prop airplane between the F-18s. And hey, let me tell you something. When I got out of that airplane, I was like, I am the coolest person on the planet. And but the funny story is, I go out there and I fly my airplane down to El Centro, which is not that far. It's probably like 100 miles. And so I flew down there, and my airplane is like purring. And I'm like, yeah, and I land. And I go with the Blue Angels, and it's like, all this stuff, and we're flying around, and I'm passing out, and oh man, I had such a great time. And I think I'm still cool. I get back in my airplane to fly back to LA, and it wasn't the same. It wasn't, it was like, I'm like, what happened? Oh my God. And so that started me down the road of looking at ex-military jets to fly. And so that was great. Had a great time. Got invited out to a lot of these things, the next thing that happens, they said, Michael, would you do videos for us? Like narrate all these Blue Angel videos. So I did for like 3 years in a row. I did their promotional video that they did, and it was great. And so the last time they said, oh, by the way, you're going to get a ride in the with the Blues. And I said, well, wait a minute. I've already did the media ride, and they told me it's one per customer. And they said, oh no, you're going to go in formation. And I went, really? Yeah. You mean like, yeah. And it's the slot guy. So you're looking at, so I go, okay, now I really am the coolest person on the planet. Now this is, so, don't clap. It doesn't get better. So the first time I went down to Miramar, to air a show, and I'm sitting there in the chalet, and I'm like ready to go, and they say, oh, sorry, Michael, you got bumped by this general, who was General Bolden, who was the president of NASA right now, or head of NASA. And I go, okay, all right. I can see that. But we're going to do a show up in Point Mugu, up in California. Point Mugu? And yeah. And you know how the weather is there. Beautiful, sometimes. I mean, it really is a spectacular place. But at this point, sometimes they have fog. And I go up there, and I'm talking to the boss, Greg Wooldridge, and Duke Vincent, and we're like, ready to go. And he says, Michael, I got to go out, and they do this kind of, he's going to go out in the jet and see what the weather's like and how he can do it. And he comes back and he goes, I'm sorry, we have to do a low show. It's not going to work. We don't take people in a low show because it's a low show, And you don't want a guy out there, And so I go, okay, so I got bumped. I said, don't worry, come up to Fleet Week up in San Francisco. No problem. I'm not from San Francisco, but I lived up there and I know about people. Right. So I flew my F-86 up there and landed, and I'm like, okay. And they said, okay, you're going to come into the little briefing that they do with the Blues, where they close their eyes and they go through the whole thing in this room. They go through the whole show, and it's really amazing. And I'm sitting there going, oh man, and I got my flight suit on. Oh, I'm just, okay, Michael, ready to go out. Go out to the airplane, get in, strap in, canopy comes down. The little thing that they have to tell you that the airplane's ready to go, they call it Bitchin' Betty. Left aileron. And the guy goes, oh. And all of a sudden you see this flurry of activity. And basically, not to make a long story even longer, the airplane broke. And I'm not talking about just, we haven't even taken off. And the airplane just broke. And the guys are taking out black boxes and putting them back in, and left aileron. And they try some more, left aileron. And I'm sitting there and I'm like going, and the guy goes, Michael, I have good news and bad news. The good news is we have another jet. The bad news is you can't go. And I get up, get out of the airplane, and as I'm walking away, the poor sailor, I must have looked at him like I was going to take his head off. But the sailor comes up and he goes, Mr. Dorn, we have a video of your flight. And if you watch the video, it is probably the funniest thing you ever imagined. I get in the airplane, I'm like smiling, and the canopy comes down, we hear the noise, canopy comes up, and I get out. And that's my video. I mean, that's my video. And they said, but don't worry, we have another ride for you. I said, you know what, guys? I think this is a sign. I think this is a sign. It never happened, which is too bad, but it didn't matter. The next thing that happened was even better, which is I got to go out on a carrier. I had a good friend that was a naval fighter pilot, and I got to go on a carrier in an F-18. And so you're talking about, like they see on movies and TVs, cat shots and traps, like 4 times. And one more story about aviation, that'll be it. We took off out of Lemoore Naval Air Station, which is up near Fresno, and flew down to San Diego, which is, probably 300 miles, something like that, 250, 300 miles. And he takes off, and he says, okay, Michael, you got the airplane. So I'm flying, and I'm having a good time, and I'm all over the sky, and he's going, Michael, you can't do that. They're watching me, And if you're going from, 30,000 feet down, you can't do that. You have to hold altitude and heading and everything. You have to, okay, all right, so I'm, okay. And it's just like you see in the movies or what they see in videos, is that we're come down to San Diego, we go out in the ocean, and he goes, okay, there's the ship at 9 o'clock. And I look at him, where? He goes, it's this little boat out there, little tiny thing. And I'm like, oh my God, we're going to land on that. And it was great. We came in. I was cool because I had my little aviator glasses and my oxygen mask, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got this. This is really, and we come in, and you see the island of the ship go by, and I go, oh my God, and we're going really fast, and I'm going, oh my God, he has to stop, and as soon as I said that, the airplane stops. He hits the wire, and it stops, and my glasses are, askew, and my helmets and my mask is off. It was, because it's kind of a violent thing. And we took off, did it again, did 3 more, got out, had lunch. I signed 800 autographs for the crew below deck, got back in the airplane, and we took off. And he goes, okay, Michael, you got the airplane again. I go, okay. And I got the controls, and I am holding altitude and speed beautifully for like 100 miles, 150 miles. I'm like, I'm just as good as these guys. I am super cool. And something happened. I don't know what it was, but I kind of went like this, or kind of move, and nothing happened. And his name is Brian. And I said, Brian, what did you do? And he had switched off the rear cockpit controls, because you can do that in the front seat. And he goes, Michael, I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I'm flying along thinking nothing's happening. I couldn't believe it, but it was probably the culmination of a great time that I had flying, and Star Trek was part of that.
All right, everybody.
Thank you.
We're looking
enough
for your
about aviation. That's it.
We're looking for your questions. Are you all set there?
Hey,
Hi. I have a favorite line. I'm sure you probably have a few of your own from Star Trek. It's pulling from 25 plus years ago, but for some reason, I am not a merry man stands out.
yes. And what's your question?
I know. Do you have a favorite? I know this is probably something you've heard 1,000 times, but I haven't heard it. Have you a favorite line? Do you have a favorite scene? Do you have a favorite show?
I have 2 favorite shows, absolutely. Before I left Next Generation, it was The Drumhead and The Offspring were my 2 favorite shows. But then when I got to Deep Space, there were 2 shows about Klingons, which is Once More Into the Breach, where John Kalikos, the old Klingon, has his last battle, and Soldiers of the Empire, where Martok and I go on the ship and we instill honor and loyalty back to these Klingons. It was really cool. Once More Into the Breach was John Kalikos' last performance, too, because he died shortly after that. which is too bad. I love the guy. Wonderful, wonderful actor. Great character, and we had a great time. So that was it. You know, I'll do something, because somebody asked me at the table today, and I told him I might do it, but I will do the Worf voice just once. And I'll do the one that I didn't like it. I didn't, but everybody loves it. I'm not a merry man thing, you know. Captain, I must protest. I am not a merry man. I think I hurt myself. Hi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What was it like going from the TNG cast to the Deep Space Nine cast?
It was a fairly easy transition for me. It was it happened very quickly. The cast of Deep Space is a very let me put it this way: the cast is funny and all that type of stuff, but the set was very quiet and very serious, which is much different than our set. You know, our set was we did great work, and we were there, and you know, didn't mess around. But we had, when they said cut, we were in stitches with each other. We just thought each other were just hilarious and funny, so that was great. But the other show was very serious, and I get over there and it's like, hi guys, because I knew some of the crew too, and I go, hi guys, how you doing? And they're like, hello Michael. How are you? I'm fine. What's going on? Hey, you know, okay, we're ready for you. And I'm like, you guys are so serious over there, you know? And I always make the joke, it was like going from TNG, which is like, yeah, okay, let's have it, you know, to P.A.S.U. Domine, you know, and Mr. Brooks, we're ready for you. P.A.S.U. Domine. So it was quite different, but there was about 6 months where I think they were looking at me like trying to figure out what kind of, you know, castmate I was going to be. And once they figured out that I was there to do good work and enjoy myself, and I wasn't there to do anything except that and enjoy myself, because I'm kind of a fun guy, you know. I don't take myself very seriously. They really welcome me, and there's a video floating around where they did. They gave me, instead of the Golden Globe, they gave me the Golden Lobe, and it was a big ear, golden ear, and they went around to the producers and everybody and said, "Oh, what do you think about this Michael Dorn?" And the producers like, "We hate him." You know, they were just this really cynical video, but it was a hilarious video. And they sprung it on me, so that was very nice. I loved it.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Hi.
Hi, I wanted to ask you about the possibility of the project for Captain Worf. The
Okay.
last I read about it was CBS was interested, and the second part of my question is, if it's a possibility, is there anything we as fans can do to help make it come to fruition?
Well, you know, I've been trying to get it on the air for what's this, 2016, for 4 years. Actually, let's say 3 years, because last year, as you know, we've heard that Paramount CBS is going to do one of their own. In 2017, they're coming out with a Star Trek TV show. I don't know the platform it's going to be on. I heard it's going to be like a pay-per-view or something like that. I don't really know. But when that happened, it pretty much put the nail in the coffin on the Worf show, which is too bad. But you know, we're in space, for God's sake, so you never know what's going to happen. You know, they could change their mind. You know, if they get a hold of my script, they may like that and want to do that. But at this point, I think it's probably dead. But I appreciate everybody's, you know, support up until now. But I don't think it's going to happen. Sorry. Hi. Hey, dude.
Hi, Mr. Dorn. Quick question for you. So you talked a lot about aviation, and the current generation of naval aviators grew up as kids watching you on Star Trek, and I know that probably brought them over to their careers that they have later in life. So I want to ask you, what about Star Trek brought you over to aviation, or anything that you learned from that helped out in the cockpit? And then my wife wanted to know how long it took you to put on the makeup. So
Okay. Well, it took. It started out to be 3 years. 3 years to put on the makeup.
Now that's a shoot.
That's a long shoot. No, it was 3 hours to put on the makeup to start, and then they got it down to about an hour and 45 minutes towards the end of the Next Generation. It was quite, and I basically, my way of dealing with it was to read the LA Times from cover to cover and do the crossword. And for some reason, it just worked out that that was the exact amount of time it took, and so I never saw what they were doing. And it was great for them because I never bothered them. Except one time when I didn't have the paper, and everything they do to me, I said, "What are you doing? Look up!" And they said, "Michael, we've been doing this for 2 years, you know." Oh, and so that was a very interesting process. But I was always into aviation since I was a kid, you know, and I always tell the story that my first real toy that I remember was a little helicopter that, you know, you'd run it along the ground and sparks came out. And I drove people crazy with that thing. And so I've always loved it, always got into it, read all I could about it, collected magazines, collected, you know, all this type of stuff. And then this second year on Star Trek, I had a little money saved up from the show, and we had 5 months off because there was a strike going on in LA. And I went out to the airport, and for my introductory flight, I was hooked. So there's a very good story about that. I did it secretly because I didn't know how they would react to one of their actors learning how to fly. And so I was really secretive about it. Nobody knew about it. Nobody. And I'd go out there, and then one of the days where I was one of my, you know, God, I was way off into it. I go there and I look, and I see the NBC News van in front of my little place where I go, the little FBO. I go, uh-oh. And so I snuck around the side and went in there and did my little planning and went out to the airplane. I was doing my pre-flight, and all of a sudden, the reporter and the cameras show up, and they're filming. And I was on the news at 4, 5, and 6 that day. And one of the producers saw it, and he ran to Paramount and said, can you do this? I mean, can he do this? And said, we don't care, you know, as long as he doesn't kill himself, you know. And so they were fine about that. But Star Trek, although it didn't get me into aviation, it doesn't have anything to do with aviation, as you know. The bridge and all that stuff, it really is make-believe. And all, you know, when I started flying,
it's got a lot of crossover to the Navy.
oh yeah, totally. Well, I think that's why the Navy was, loved the show and wanted me to hang out, because it is about Navy. It is, you know, the whole thing about, you know, USS Enterprise and all that. So it was a great time. But Star Trek definitely gave me the outlet for, you know, doing my passion, which is flying.
Very well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. Good luck, man.
Are you telling us you really weren't flying the Defiant? You weren't flying the Defiant, really?
Why you're blasphemy?
There was a funny story about the Defiant. When we did First Contact, if you remember, my entrance was on the Defiant.
Right.
And so we go in there, and when the movie was done, we went in for a screening, and Deep Space Nine and our show we're all invited, and we're sitting there. And at the end of the movie, I come out, and Avery Brooks is there, and he goes, I don't remember giving you permission to take the Defiant. I go, no? He goes, no. So, yes.
What is your favorite episode from either one of the shows?
The favorite episode, well, from Next Generation, my favorite episode, if I had to choose one, is called The Drumhead, which is where Picard is on trial. And it was co-starring a very famous actress, Gene Simmons. And she was an admiral, retired admiral. And from Deep Space Nine, there's two. There's Once Born to the Breach with John Calicos and Soldiers of the Empire. Those were my favorite. Love them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey,
My son was wondering if you liked voice acting because he's heard you in a lot of the cartoons. So he just wanted to know how much you liked voice acting.
voice acting is different. It really is a kind of a skill that you kind of acquire if you're going to do it as that's what you do. There's a lot of voice actors, that's their profession. I mean, they don't do any on camera, it's just that, and they're incredibly good with it. I like it because you can kind of go in and do your thing, and it's good for doing it between jobs, between your on-camera stuff, because there isn't a lot of commitment in terms of time. So you can go in and do it, and it's really great. I met some fabulous people. I mean, my favorite is I Am Weasel. I did that for 3 years, and it was just a funny show because it's one of those shows where the producers and the studio had this really interesting relationship where the producers can do stuff and they try to fool the studio into thinking that it's not like really risque. And there were some things that was done and said, and I'd look and I'd go, can we do this? And they said, oh yeah, and so it was, when you're on a series, it's great. The last one I did, in fact, I just maybe finished it, I'm still doing some pickups, is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, and I do Captain Mozart, another angry, bitter, character. But that was really cool too. Thank you. Hi.
Hi. First of all, I spent 20-something years trying to avoid Star Trek, and then I saw you on an episode, and I'm completely and totally addicted now. Thank you.
You saw me what?
I saw you in a couple of episodes, and now I'm completely and totally addicted to all things Star Trek.
Cool.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
Second, have you been to any of the museums here, like the Pensacola Aviation Museum?
Yeah,
or
I was there on Friday.
Oh, great. How about the Armament Museum in Fort Walton Beach?
No.
You have to go. It's great. They even have a wall of all the soldiers that have passed on in the war recently. But my question is, if you were to do a job outside of the entertainment business, what would it be and why?
Ooh, outside of the entertainment business. Wow. Yeah. I'd be a real estate mogul.
Something easy, right?
Huh?
Something easy, right?
Well, there was a time where I loved politics back in the 70s, late 70s. Not anymore. But I love real estate. One of the things I love about the entertainment business is that, every day is differently. Every day is different. There's no 2 days alike. And to me, I did a little bit of real estate. I still do just a tiny bit, now. And I think it's just fascinating. I think it's really good. But that's what I do. I mean, outside entertainment, wow. Never really thought about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming here.
You're welcome. Hi.
Hello. Oh God, I sound like crap. But anyway, thanks for coming. And I love you on TNG. Love you on DS9. Do you have a favorite Star Trek alien species other than Klingons? Maybe. Just curious, Me neither, so.
Yeah, I know. I guess trills, because they... Because they all seem to be hot chicks, I guess that's one of them.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Hi.
On Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, who was your favorite people to work with?
Oh, God, I can't. I mean, you really can't. I mean, somebody asked me that today. I can't answer that. I mean, just because it's like each of them had their own, thing. You know what I mean? It's sort of like you work with Patrick or Brent or Marina or LeVar. They're all, it's kind of hard to choose one, to be the favorite. I mean, Brent and I were like insane together because we love old movies, and we used to do dueling old actors where we imitate them, and Marina was hilarious because she's like my sister, and we just had these great times. But the funny thing is that along with working together, when you work in a scene with them, it was the most enjoyable thing because they're really solid actors. And it's really nice to do that. It's just like in music, if you work with somebody who's a fantastic musician and you're a good musician, it just goes really well. I mean, it's just so. But and like I said, when I went over to Deep Space, it was like the same thing. I mean, I had such a blast with everybody, So I know I'm not that good. I know. Poor thing. You go like, I am so bored with this guy. Thank you.
Were there any writers that you think wrote your character better than the others? That you really worked well with?
Oh yeah. I mean, there was a bunch of early guys, Morris Hurley and this guy named Herb Wright, but Ron Moore was the guy who did, he wrote the quintessential Klingon episodes. And Ron is doing Outlander?
I think he is, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
He's produced Outlander. He also produced Battlestar Galactica. So he's doing really, really well. But he's one that wrote some just amazing stuff. So, yes.
Hi. First, I'm a local real estate agent, so if you need any help. Second thing is, Marina was here last year.
Yes.
And she told us great stories, and she too thinks of you as a brother and had a lot of stories and called you Dorny. Mm-hmm. And I want to know, can you share with us some downtime off back stories, not, what's your favorite, all that, but when you guys were together on stage on set, can you share a story with them?
Oh, there's so many. It just goes on and on. It's really hard to. The one thing I can do is I can tell you the story of Marina and I, how we started, is that we hated each other. Did she tell you that?
No, she just talks about how much she loves you.
Oh, yeah, well, loves me now, but oh, God, we just couldn't stand each other. Because when I first saw her, I went, she's good looking, and she looked stuck up, or she acted kind of stuck up and, but I think that was just the accent. I don't know. And I was we just didn't get along, And it was very interesting. She came up to me one day and said, Michael, my brother is coming into town and he plays tennis and I know you play tennis. Would you play tennis with him? I want to give him some. I went, sure, as long as you're not around, yeah, And I go over there and pick him up and we go play tennis, and he and I had such a great time. We got along famously, and we laughed and giggled, and I love the guy. I still do. I saw him just recently. And we go back to the house, and he says, yeah, Marina's going to be making dinner for us. I go, oh, great, okay. So I go there, and there's this nice woman in the kitchen making dinner, And would you guys like some more pasta? And I'm like, who is this person? Where did you? And it was less about her and more about me. And I learned a very good lesson, which was, you really can't judge a person. You really can't until you really, really get to know them. And once I saw that, I went, oh my God, she's the most sweet, nurturing person I've ever seen. And that's when it turned and she started to love me because her brother loved me. Her brother liked me a lot, and so naturally I'm okay now, and that's how it started. But yeah, it was. But God, there's so many things. I mean, there's the story of Patrick and me assassinating him every day. That was a great story because Patrick sits there in his chair, and that, and he is, hello, and I would stand behind him, and whatever I would find, I'd kill him. It could be like a bunch of grapes, and I go, the king sits unaware that death lurks in the form of grapes. Ah! And he would, he'd go, oh, I've been slain by the bunch of grapes. Ah! And he'd lay out. And, Jonathan and I there was a time where we were like getting very big on the set because we were like, screw it, let's eat. I was dating a girl at the time who was a wonderful cook, and it became, and I'd be over there, like the night before, and she'd give me a bunch of food, and Jonathan would come in my trailer first thing in the morning. What did Gracie fix for us? And we just start eating. It just went on and on and on, and everybody was just, and when I went to deep space, there's a whole bunch of stories behind that too, so. Thank you. Hi.
Hi. One of the episodes in Next Gen, you drank prune juice
Yes.
and called it the warrior's beverage.
Yes.
What was your honest opinion of the taste of prune juice?
Couldn't stand it. I knew that they thought it was cute in a way, and you got to be careful because whenever, they say, oh, wouldn't it be cute if? You're in trouble. Wouldn't it be cute if he was sitting in a tub of mud? Wouldn't that be great? And you have to do it, So I was not very happy with it. They thought it was a cute idea, and people, and it was a very funny thing because just like with James Doohan, because he loved scotch on the show, the fans would always bring him scotch at the conventions. And so naturally, when the prune juice thing happened, I'd go to a convention, and the first 10 times it was funny. Oh, Mr. Dorn, we have something for you. What's that? Prune juice. And so then it became like a real, but Mr. Dorn, we have something for you. Yeah, I know, prune juice. Very funny. Ha, ha, ha. And I don't like to throw things away, and so I would just take it home. And I had my mother at that time, who's a very nosy person, would always come over and look through all my stuff and, what's going on? And she opened up the refrigerator, and there's like 10 bottles of prune juice. And she says, Michael, yes. Boy, are you okay? And I go, yes, Mom. Yes, Mom. It's just prune juice, Mom. It's a funny thing. Are you sure? I said, yes, I know. So, but it was, I couldn't stand it. Couldn't stand it. Is that your baby back there?
Yes.
Not a baby, but.
Well, he's about 1.5 years, but yeah.
Oh, it is a baby.
He would be mine.
Oh, okay. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. Have you ever been to Cape Canaveral?
No, I haven't. I've been invited a couple of times, but I just, business wouldn't allow me. But yeah, I'd like to go. In fact, a good friend of mine has an aviation company down there at the Canaveral that he gives rides in F-104 starfighters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You could fly down to Patrick and
Oh, yeah, no.
slide right in. Thanks.
Thank you.
You spoke about the writers. By the way, we still have time for more questions if you'd like to come in. We got one. Okay, go right ahead. I'll shut up.
I'm very sorry to hear that the Captain Warp series isn't going to happen, but I was very much looking forward to that. Just kind of a weird question, but what were the ship names you guys were considering for that show, as far as the name of any ship that would be involved?
The way that I had written it, it was going to be focused on the Klingon Empire, and the internal stuff that goes on with them. But it wasn't going to be just all a bunch of talking and stuff like that. It was really going to be action and stuff like that. So it was, they were all Klingon ships.
Okay.
And I can't remember the names of them, but they were ships that we've actually heard about before that are still out there. And the Yalvang and a couple other ones, I forgot what it was. But yeah, it was going to be basically the same thing except in the Klingon world.
Interesting.
And interestingly enough, one of the whole things was that it was the idea that it was going to be, the Gene Roddenberry edict, which was, wagon train to the stars. So it wasn't going to be just on a world and that's it. It was going to be adventures out in space and battles and chases and things like that. And a ship and the Klingon Empire has moved on. And so there's a lot of aliens and humans and Starfleet in the culture now, which makes Klingons very nervous.
That sounds fascinating. Is there any chance of that coming out of other media, like books or anything like that?
Well, you know what? I'm gonna run it by Paramount. I'm gonna see if they have any interest. Send it to them and see if they like the script and see if they have any interest. They may or may not, but that's what I'm gonna do.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. So Worf is an amazingly complex character. He's a fighter, he's a lover, he's a father, he learns compassion, not just so straightforward. It's a testament, I think, to your acting ability, and I'd like to know where you go in your mind, or where you went in your mind to bring that character out.
Actually, the character was, I can't take full credit for it. I mean, I created the character in terms of the initial, what we saw, which was a guy who was very, very nationalistic and into the Klingons are the best and humans are kind of weak and stupid. And so I did that and the writers took off from there. But what I did was, and I do this with all my characters, is I create a backstory. Where they come from, who they are, how they feel about this, how they feel about that, so I can go to that. And the compassion and all that stuff was a product of the writers. They kind of set up the situation, and I reacted to the situation that they set up. And that's what it is, because acting is reacting, and his compassion comes out of learning. Like every situation, his wife gets killed. My God, he's looking at a young son. My God, what am I going to do? His son's growing up. He doesn't want to be oh God, what am I going to do about that? He's like, and the whole thing with Troy. He's trying to be like, well, I can be suave and debonair, and not really, but So it just became part of the writing more than anything else. You got to credit them for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. What, you have no neck?
She has no question.
You want me to cut your throat? Yes, cut your throat. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank you for supporting the cast, Star Trek in itself. It looks like it's going to last a very long time, and which we're very happy with. And you guys are, I've got to say, the best fans. I mean, you're not going to see any other television show, outside of the kind of genre that we have that has this type of following. I mean, I would say that unequivocally because of, like the 25th anniversary of our show. You're talking about 30,000 people in a room, and all year round for 2 years, the crowds were just huge and amazing. I mean, you're not going to see like, a TV show like, Law and Order or something like that, where everybody comes dressed as lawyers, and, serving people, and prosecuting. So it really is a phenomenon that we take very seriously and we're very grateful for. Plus because, like I said, it's one of those things where after 11 years on a TV show and 6 movies, to still be part of this and still, it's quite is quite an undertaking, I'm very fortunate. The other thing too is, I'll say this and I'll go, is that I was playing tennis. I played tennis all the time, used to play tennis all the time with Bob Pine, who is Chris Pine's father from the new show. And because I did Chips and Robert Pine was on Chips. And one day I was grousing or complaining about something. And he says, Michael, you got to be careful who you complain to. And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, you know, you've created a character that is an iconic character that really is part of this lore and that's going to live for a long time, you know, and you should be very, you know, grateful for that. And I said, you know, you're right. And I took his words to heart, and I am very grateful. I just don't think you could have asked for a better career than what I have. And I'm grateful, and I'm happy that you guys like the character and support him. So thank you for coming out, and I appreciate it.